Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to this evening's Proms at Home concert with the Aurora Orchestra. One of the most memorable events at Proms was the sight and sound of the Aurora Orchestra at our 2018 festival, spread out in the church aisles and, of course, playing from memory. Tonight we extend a virtual welcome to the orchestra, together with soloists Dame Sarah Connolly and Andrew Staples, in their Song of the Earth concert. Before the concert, the orchestra's founder and principal conductor, Nicholas Collon, will be in conversation with Nicholas Chalmers, the artistic director of Neville Holt Opera and, of course, director of music at St Jude's. Just before we start, let me add that although tonight's concert is free, we are raising money for our beneficiary charities, Toynbee Hall and North London Hospice. They urgently need our support, so do please consider making a donation at the end of the concert tonight. Details of how to donate will be provided at the end. Now it gives me great pleasure to extend a very warm welcome to this evening's concert with the Aurora Orchestra.
Hi everyone, I'm Nicholas Chalmers. I'm the organist and director of music at St Jude on the Hill, Hampstead Garden suburb, where I've been in that position for 17 years. I've had the great privilege of conducting a number of concerts at Proms at St Jude's, and it's my great pleasure today to introduce the conductor, Nicholas Collon, the founder and principal conductor of the Aurora Orchestra, and in lieu of them performing tonight at Proms at St Jude's, owing to the current crisis, I'm here talking to Nicholas a bit about their programme, which we're going to hear a bit of at the end of this interview now. Nick, how are you? How are you doing?
Hi, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm enjoying the beautiful weather today, and well, it's a bit of an odd situation, isn't it? It's a lot of time with my family. It's very domestic. Few months it's been, which is a pleasant change from the normal conducting career life.
I'm sure. And where are you speaking from today?
Crouch End, which is where I live, North London, so I'm sure you'll know Crouch End.
Very, very well. I'm calling from Shepherd's Bush here, so yes, we're in Londoners together. Tell us a bit about your experience of Proms at St Jude's. You performed there with the Aurora Orchestra in 2018, a programme of Mozart. What was special about Proms at St Jude's in your mind? What did you enjoy about that concert?
Oh, it was a beautiful concert, actually. I remember the weather was amazing, and we had a lovely time just playing in that amazing church and a very nice audience. And it's really nice just connecting in a local way, you know, being a North Londoner, not very far from the area, just feeling that that's your local network. It was a really enjoyable event.
My experience of Proms at St Jude's is you're in very close proximity to the audience. I've mainly performed opera there, and most recently Così fan tutte, and I love that immediacy. I always find as a conductor in opera, there is a bit of disconnect between the orchestral pit and the performers, but there is that wonderful immediacy in St Jude's, even though it's a big acoustic. I hear at the end of the concert that the Aurora Orchestra play from memory, surrounding the audience. Tell us a bit about that and how you achieve that in that building.
Yeah, we do that at quite a lot of our memorized concerts when we play a piece from memory, which isn't all the time, but when we do, it's quite a nice way to finish off the concert like a little encore, just to put the orchestral members amongst the audience and give them the impression that they're inside the orchestra, which is a very unusual thing for an audience member, unless they're a professional musician themselves. You know, to be inside the sound of an orchestra is so wonderful.
Yes, to be in the engine, it's so spectacular. I know that from when, say, kids come to our dress rehearsals at my festival, Neville Holt Opera, they're always looking over into the pit and seeing where the sound is emanating from. I think it's really wonderful to be amongst the audience like that. When you first did concerts from memory with the players, what was sort of the reaction immediately from the audience? So when did you first do it at the orchestra? When was your first concert delivered from memory, and what was the reaction?
It was the BBC Proms in 2014, and it was Mozart's G minor Symphony, the 40th. And well, I don't know. Actually, I think the audience was slightly. Well, I think they were mostly elated and surprised, and I think it had been put in the marketing before that we were going to do it from memory, so it probably wasn't a complete shock to them. But it was. I remember my dad was in the audience. He said he's never been so terrified in his life. He didn't enjoy it at all because he was just terrified that we were going to slip up and go wrong.
Isn't that? I think that's such an amazing thing about playing from memory as well. I mean, it's not something I've ever really enjoyed. As a pianist even, or as an organist, I've always slightly been terrified of the prospect of it. But then, like learning a language or learning, say, a poem or something from memory, it sort of really allows the mind to expand its capacity and everything. It's just so good for the heart and the soul. How do you find the players and the process of memorizing a piece react to it? Do you get all different sorts of reactions and responses to memorizing a piece as a collective?
Oh yeah, everyone goes about it in a very idiosyncratic, unique way. That's part of the fascination of it. Some people, I mean, people only sign up to it if they want to do it. So they're all committed to it. Some people, it's a very difficult, challenging, long process. Some people find it very easy. We all have different memory capacities. Some people are very used to it. Some people have trained their brains in that way. Some people are coming at it for, not the first time. I think all musicians of that caliber have played from memory before, but some people are really not very used to doing it regularly. It depends on what part you're playing. The difference in learning a second violin part compared to a horn part, for example, can be huge. And so I think they all go about it in a different way, but when they come together, it feels very similar, the track we're on. We're on a communal journey towards playing this piece. And to be honest, we don't really discuss memorization in the rehearsal process at all. We just think about the music, which is as it should be.
I always find this fascinating because I'd been assistant chorus master at English National Opera, where people are very used to memorizing in different languages. And of course, working with BBC singers, you get a group maybe which doesn't lend itself so well to memorizing because they're singing so much repertoire each week. And I just always thought it was a fascinating process to how to engineer and deliver a rehearsal with people who are all learning in different ways. It's such a personal experience. It must be for, say, the second violinist in Mozart symphonies, the chugging away on semiquavers compared to through harmonization in other parts. It's putting that jigsaw together must be so exciting when it does come together. And also then that element of fear that you might forget. But I guess it's always gone so well for you. And I thought the Berlioz project at Proms last year was just absolutely incredible and blew people's minds away what you were able to achieve there. Aurora Orchestra is at the forefront of what classical music organizations are doing to broaden their appeal in classical music. Other than the memorizing music and performing in that way, how does Aurora struggle to make a difference and strive to achieve a new audience for classical music?
I think memorization is part of that. So it's thinking about how to present music in perhaps a new way. Novelty for its own sake is not particularly interesting, is it? So it's looking at aspects of the music and the way we put together a program and the way we appear on a stage and thinking about how that can make the music speak more loudly and more expressively to the audience that's there. Some very obvious things that we figured out 10 years ago. We don't always do, but there's something very boring about watching people move around music stands between pieces, particularly when you get these sort of contemporary programs where the stage shift is 20 minutes and then you have a 3-minute piece and then another stage shift. It compared to the level that ensembles or organizations in, say, theatre or pop music are working in on that level aesthetically, it's very low, isn't it? The concept that even that musicians walk on a stage looking bedraggled and they take their handbag off and they pop it over the side of the chair and then they play their favorite bits from the concert coming up, and then, do you know what I mean? You're sitting there as an audience member and you've all the magic has been taken away before you've heard a note.
Audiences have very high expectations. In film, there's so many high-level visual experiences you can have now. I guess presentation should be everything. I think, it really does need a serious look at, doesn't it, to see how we all present ourselves and what is before the eye. In these times where we've all had to sort of down tools and not be performing music together, how have you kept yourself going musically? How do you keep yourself going during the day? Are you doing lots of study, or are you just actually finding it's a very wonderful time to be with family?
Yeah, the latter. I mean, I've done very little music, to be honest, which is fine. I've spent, the last, 16 years or something, pretty pretty busy, actually, just trying to stay ahead on that ongoing train of the next bit of repertoire is there and you're learning it, and then you're conducting something else at the same time, and then the next week you have to do the next thing. It's quite stressful. So having a few months, let's hope they're not too many months, but having a few months to spend time with the family as well. I've got 3 kids, and I'm away too much normally, so it's actually really been lovely to do that, and there's not been very much space to do anything else. And in a funny way, I mean, I think a lot of people feel this creatively, I don't know, it's I'm not quite felt in the right place to do that.
I agree with you. I feel exactly the same sentiments as you. I felt initially that I was going to have to achieve a lot. This was a time to sort of really knuckle down. We wouldn't get it back again, this sort of time. But actually, as the sort of crisis progressed, I've sort of taken that pressure off myself a little bit. And I've actually been at the piano as and when, and actually really enjoyed just sort of playing the piano rather than having to learn it for a special occasion or a concert. So I really appreciate the way you express that. I think a lot of us feel the same. And Nick, we're very lucky at Proms at St Jude's that the Aurora Orchestra and Association of King's Place are sharing a performance which Proms at St Jude's members get to hear as well. Could you explain a bit about what we're going to enjoy now after this interview we've had together? It's just to say it's an arrangement of Mahler's Das Lied von der Erde by Ian Farrington. Would you just introduce it for us?
Yeah, sure. How long have you got? I mean, well, Das Lied von der Erde is it sits between Mahler's 8th and 9th symphonies. It's one of those pieces he never heard because it was at the very end of his life, and it is sort of, it's halfway between the song cycle and a symphony. Many people would call it a symphony, and it's shared between a mezzo-soprano and a tenor. In this case, this was a performance where we were working with Sarah Connolly, mezzo-soprano, and Andrew Staples, the tenor, and they take it in turns. There are 6 songs. The first 5 are actually equal in length to the 6th, which is their Abschied, the farewell, an enormous orchestral song. It's about half an hour long, just on its own. And this was an amazing novel new format for Mahler to write this piece that couldn't be categorized as either a song cycle or a symphony. It's a bit of both. It sort of shows off the most amazing elements of his writing. Of course, it was written for an enormous orchestra. In some cases, actually too enormous. The first movement is always a huge struggle to balance between the tenor and the orchestra of whatever 90 people it is. Schoenberg wrote an arrangement. There were lots of arrangements done in the end of the 1910s and 1920s in Vienna of Mahler's works. Schoenberg being, someone who hero worshipped in certain ways Mahler's music. And he did an arrangement with some of his colleagues, which used a harmonium and a piano and strings and a few wind, as was the custom in those days to use the harmonium, which is a very tricky instrument to use. So if you may have seen that the Royal Opera House just did a version, I think they did, I haven't seen it, but they did the Schoenberg version with Sarah Connolly, in fact, just a couple of days ago. We have done the Schoenberg version many times, but actually I asked Ian Farrington, who is a genius arranger, orchestrator, composer, pianist, to do a version which gets rid of the harmonium and puts in its place the harp, reinstates the horn and the trumpet, which is so important. There's amazing trumpet solos, and fleshes it out a bit. The harmonium is a very difficult instrument to play in an ensemble with. It's out of tune and doesn't make a very nice noise. I love it as an instrument, but and Ian did this, and it's amazing. Actually, it works really well. I think it's 15 players or something. And what you get then is in a smaller reduction is, well, obviously one, very few balance problems, so you can hear the singers all the way through. And also, the great thing about Mahler's music is often he's only using individual instruments anyway. So there are huge swathes of it that can exist just like it would in the orchestral version. These amazing lines at the end in the Abschied, where you have a flute solo with just a cello drone on the bottom, that kind of thing. Mahler is famous, of course, for inventing this idea of chamber music within a full orchestral context. So it was great fun to do. We've done it quite a few times, and we would have very much enjoyed doing it live, but sadly, not now. And this was a concert taken, I have actually no idea. Maybe it was 2 years ago, 2018. Does anyone know? And it was done at King's Place in near King's Cross. So it was a lovely concert as far as I remember, and they both, Andy and Sarah, sang beautifully. I'm sure it's a treat to watch them sing.
Well, Nicholas, thank you so much for that, and I really hope the supporters of Proms St Jude's enjoy this beautiful performance. Ian Farrington is an incredible arranger. I'm writing a book with him at the moment called Opera Nation, introducing kids to opera, and I think he's an absolute genius. And I think in terms of orchestral reductions, his job's going to be very busy over the coming year, considering how we all get back to making classical music. But I know the Aurora Orchestra will be at the forefront of anything which goes on in the coming months. And it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thank you, Nicholas, so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Great pleasure indeed. Have fun.